Your future spouse is sending a message to you, open it immediately. Don't scroll, listen to this because your heart needs this right now. If these words somehow found you today, don't dismiss them as another random message passing through your screen. Maybe you weren't searching for this, but somehow this message was searching for you. There are moments in life when the heart quietly whispers before the world ever speaks. This could be one of those moments. Somewhere, someone you've never fully met, or perhaps someone destiny has been carefully preparing for you, is carrying thoughts they cannot explain. They don't know your favorite song. They don't know the color of your bedroom walls or the little habits that make you smile without realizing it. Yet somehow, deep within them, there is an empty place that only your presence will someday fill. That feeling has become stronger lately, and they don't understand why. Every morning they wake with an unexplainable sense that someone important is drawing closer. Every night they wonder why certain dreams refuse to leave them. Those dreams are never completely clear. Faces blur. Conversations fade before morning arrives. But one feeling always remains: hope. A hope that someday the stranger they've been waiting for will finally become the love they've prayed for. Listen carefully because this isn't just about romance. It's about timing. Life has a mysterious way of protecting two people until they're both ready to receive each other. Maybe you've questioned why relationships didn't last. Maybe you've cried after giving your whole heart to someone who couldn't value it. Maybe you've wondered why every door seemed to close just when you believed happiness had finally arrived. It wasn't because your story was over. It was because your greatest chapter hadn't begun yet. Some journeys require solitude before they can sustain love. Some hearts must first learn how valuable they truly are before another person is trusted to hold them. Every disappointment you've carried has quietly been preparing you for a love that won't require you to beg for attention, chase affection, or convince someone to stay. The person meant for you is learning those same lessons right now, even if you live hundreds or thousands of miles apart. Your future spouse has been changing in ways you cannot see. They have walked through seasons of loneliness that forced them to grow stronger. They have experienced heartbreak that taught them the difference between attention and genuine love. They have stood in rooms full of people while secretly feeling completely alone. More than once, they've smiled so no one would ask difficult questions. More than once, they've convinced themselves that perhaps true love was only meant for other people. But something changed recently. They began noticing little reminders that life wasn't finished surprising them. A conversation with a stranger. A peaceful sunset after a difficult day. A song that seemed to understand emotions they couldn't explain. Tiny moments like these began stitching hope back into their heart one thread at a time. And without realizing it, they started preparing for you. Not because they know your name. Not because they've seen your face. But because something inside them quietly said, "Don't give up yet." There have been nights when your future spouse sat alone thinking about the kind of person they wished existed. They imagined someone kind instead of cruel. Patient instead of controlling. Honest instead of pretending. They imagined someone who would laugh with them during ordinary days and stay beside them through extraordinary storms. They imagined someone who wouldn't disappear the moment life became complicated. While they were imagining all of this, they were unknowingly describing you. The qualities you've been building through every challenge are becoming the answer to prayers they've whispered when nobody else was listening. Meanwhile, your own heart has carried questions no one could fully answer. Why did certain people leave? Why did some promises break so easily? Why did you keep believing in love after disappointment tried convincing you to stop? The answer is simple, even if it didn't feel simple while living through it. Deep within your soul, hope survived because it recognized something your mind couldn't yet understand. Real love was still ahead of you. There is something remarkable about people destined to find each other. Long before they meet, their lives begin developing similar strengths. One learns forgiveness while the other learns vulnerability. One discovers patience while the other learns trust. One overcomes fear while the other finally lets go of pride. Piece by piece, life shapes them until the timing becomes right. It may feel random from the outside, but behind every delay is quiet preparation. Every detour has carried hidden purpose. If your future spouse could write you a letter today without knowing your address, perhaps it would sound something like this. I don't know who you are yet, but somehow I believe you're real. There have been days I almost stopped believing we'd ever find each other. Life has tested my heart more than I ever expected. I've questioned my worth. I've wondered whether I was asking for too much by hoping for kindness, loyalty, and peace. But something inside me keeps saying that somewhere, you're growing too. Somewhere you're becoming stronger because one day our paths will finally cross. Until then, I'm trying to become the person you deserve instead of simply wishing you would appear. Can you imagine receiving those words? Can you imagine realizing that while you've been wondering whether anyone truly understands your heart, another soul has been asking the exact same question? That's the beautiful mystery of destiny. Two separate stories slowly becoming one. Your future spouse isn't looking for perfection. They're looking for peace. They're looking for someone whose presence feels like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. They want conversations that continue late into the night because silence feels comfortable instead of awkward. They want laughter that heals old wounds without even trying. They want honesty, even when honesty is difficult. Most of all, they want someone who chooses them every single day, not because life is easy, but because love is worth protecting. Perhaps you've underestimated how much you've already grown. Every tear you've cried taught compassion. Every disappointment strengthened wisdom. Every lonely season deepened your understanding of genuine connection. None of those experiences were wasted. They became part of the person your future spouse will one day admire. They'll notice your resilience before they even understand your history. They'll see gentleness where others only noticed quietness. They'll recognize courage hidden beneath humility. And when that day comes, something inside both of you will feel strangely familiar. Not because you've met before, but because your hearts have been traveling toward each other for much longer than either of you realized. Even now, as you read these words, your future spouse may be making a decision that unknowingly brings them closer to your path. Maybe they're accepting a new opportunity. Maybe they're moving to a different city. Maybe they're choosing healing instead of bitterness. Maybe they're finally letting go of someone who was never meant to stay. Every decision is quietly rearranging tomorrow in ways neither of you can yet see. What feels ordinary today may become the moment you later look back on and realize, that was the beginning. So don't lose hope if your story feels unfinished. Some of the most meaningful chapters begin after long seasons of waiting. Trust that the love meant for you is being prepared with the same care that life has used to prepare you. And when your paths finally meet, you'll understand why every delay mattered, why every goodbye made room for a greater hello, and why your heart never truly gave up. Because somewhere tonight, without knowing your name, your future spouse is carrying a message in their heart, a message that says, "Please don't stop believing. I'm finding my way to you, one step at a time." The message doesn't end there. In fact, what your future spouse wants you to know becomes even more personal from this moment forward. If they could somehow sit across from you today, with nothing separating your hearts except time itself, they wouldn't begin by talking about grand promises or perfect dreams. They would begin with honesty. They would gently tell you that before they are ever able to love you the way you deserve, they first had to learn how to stop running from themselves. There were seasons when they believed being strong meant hiding every emotion. They convinced themselves that silence was safer than vulnerability and that pretending everything was fine was easier than admitting they were lonely. Yet every time they looked into the future, they felt something missing. They couldn't explain it, but there was always an empty chair in the picture they imagined, a place reserved for someone they had never met. They didn't know that chair belonged to you. They didn't know that every quiet prayer they whispered into the darkness was slowly moving both of your stories toward the same destination. There were nights they stood beneath the stars asking questions no one around them could answer. Will I ever find someone who understands my heart without trying to change it? Will I ever meet someone who chooses honesty over games, kindness over pride, and loyalty over convenience? They never heard a voice answering those questions, yet somehow peace always followed. Looking back, they will someday realize that peace wasn't random. It was hope quietly reminding them that your story was already unfolding somewhere beyond the horizon. Right now, while you wonder when love will finally arrive, your future spouse is unknowingly making room for you in their life. They are letting go of old disappointments. They are releasing memories that no longer deserve space in their heart. Every goodbye they have struggled to say has been creating room for the hello that will eventually change everything. They have learned that holding on to what hurts only delays what heals. It wasn't an easy lesson. Some mornings they woke believing they had moved on, only to find old emotions returning before breakfast. Some evenings they smiled in front of everyone else while quietly wondering if they would always carry invisible scars. Yet even through those difficult moments, something inside them refused to stop believing that the right person would never make healing feel impossible. That belief has kept them moving forward even when they felt exhausted. And perhaps that is one of the first things you will admire about them, their quiet resilience. They have survived more than they often admit. They have rebuilt themselves in places where no one applauded. They have fought battles inside their own mind that no photograph could ever reveal. Just as you have carried invisible victories, so have they. One day, when your conversations become deeper than small talk, you'll begin discovering pieces of each other's journeys. There will be moments when you stop speaking because words won't be necessary. Your eyes will say everything your voices cannot. You will recognize familiar pain inside each other without needing detailed explanations. Instead of judgment, there will be understanding. Instead of fear, there will be comfort. Instead of pretending to be perfect, both of you will finally feel safe enough to be real. Your future spouse wants you to know something that they haven't told anyone else. Sometimes they worry that they may arrive too late. They wonder if perhaps life has already caused too much damage, if maybe the person they're meant to love has become tired of hoping. They worry that after everything you've experienced, your heart might be too guarded to believe them when they finally arrive. If only they could see you now, they would gently ask you not to let disappointment build walls that genuine love will later have to climb. They would ask you to protect your heart without closing it completely. They would remind you that caution and hope can exist together. One protects you. The other keeps you alive. Somewhere in the near future, there will be an ordinary day that doesn't appear extraordinary at first. The morning will begin like countless others. People will rush through routines. Cars will fill roads. Conversations will come and go. Nothing will seem different. Yet unseen by either of you, countless small decisions will begin aligning. A delayed schedule. An unexpected invitation. A change of plans. A conversation you almost skipped. A place you almost didn't visit. Looking back years later, those tiny moments will become the beginning of your greatest chapter together. Life often hides miracles inside ordinary afternoons because extraordinary endings rarely announce themselves beforehand. That is why your future spouse keeps asking life for patience. They no longer want rushed love. They no longer want temporary excitement that disappears the moment challenges appear. They have discovered that lasting love grows quietly, like roots beneath the ground long before anyone notices the tree above it. They hope you are learning that same lesson because what waits ahead for both of you deserves steady hearts, not hurried ones. If they could leave one final message for today, it would simply be this: please don't mistake the waiting season for a forgotten season. Every day we spend growing separately is preparing us to remain together when life eventually joins our paths. I don't need a perfect version of you. I only hope you continue becoming your truest self because that's the person I have been unknowingly praying for all along. One day I will thank every delay that protected us from meeting before we were ready. Until then, keep believing that somewhere, someone you have never met already feels grateful that you exist. And perhaps that is the message your own heart needed today, not certainty about dates or names, but reassurance that love worth building is also worth waiting for. Every sunrise carries unseen possibilities. Every chapter that feels quiet may actually be laying the foundation for the loudest joy your life has ever known. Your future spouse is still walking toward you, one faithful step at a time, even if neither of you can yet see where the road finally meets. When it does, you won't remember how long you waited. You'll only remember how completely your hearts recognized each other the moment they finally came home. There is one more message your future spouse wishes they could place directly into your hands, not because they expect you to understand everything today, but because they hope these words will find you on a day when your faith feels small and your heart feels tired. If they could speak to you across time itself, they would tell you not to measure your future by the disappointments of your past. They know what it feels like to wonder whether love simply happens for everyone else. They know the quiet ache of watching other people build the life they dreamed of while asking themselves why their own story seems delayed. There have been evenings when they smiled for family, laughed with friends, and fulfilled every responsibility expected of them, yet the moment they returned home and closed the door behind them, the silence reminded them that something was still missing. It wasn't success they longed for. It wasn't recognition or applause. It was the feeling of belonging completely with one person who would see every imperfect piece of them and still choose to stay. They often wondered if such a connection truly existed or if it was only something people wrote about in stories. Yet every time they were close to giving up, something unexpected happened. A stranger offered kindness without a reason. A child laughed with complete innocence. A sunrise painted the sky in colors too beautiful to ignore. These ordinary moments quietly whispered that hope was still alive, even when they could not feel it. Those little reminders became anchors that kept them believing there was still someone walking toward them, even if they had no idea where that person was. They didn't realize that while they were searching for signs, you were asking many of the very same questions. Your journeys have been different, yet the emotions have often been remarkably similar. Both of you have learned what loneliness feels like. Both of you have experienced moments when trust became difficult. Both of you have discovered that healing is rarely quick and almost never easy. But those experiences have shaped qualities that cannot be purchased or borrowed. Compassion grows where pain has been understood. Patience grows where waiting has been endured. Wisdom grows where mistakes have been faced with honesty. One day those qualities will become the strongest part of your relationship because neither of you will love from fantasy alone. You will love with understanding. You will know how precious loyalty truly is because you have experienced its absence. You will appreciate gentle words because you remember what careless ones felt like. You will celebrate ordinary mornings together because you know how many mornings once began with uncertainty instead of peace. Your future spouse wants you to know that they are becoming someone who values communication over assumptions. They are learning that listening is often more powerful than speaking. They are discovering that saying, "I'm sorry," is not weakness and that forgiving someone is not the same as forgetting what happened. These lessons have not come easily. Some have been learned through heartbreak. Others through regret. Still others through watching people they cared about drift away because pride spoke louder than love. Every difficult lesson has left a mark, but those marks have become reminders of the kind of partner they never want to stop becoming. They hope you are learning similar lessons because lasting love is built not only on affection but also on humility, grace, and the willingness to keep choosing each other when life becomes complicated. There will come a day when your first conversation with them feels strangely familiar. Perhaps you will laugh more easily than you expected. Perhaps time will seem to disappear while you talk. Perhaps you will notice a calmness you cannot explain. You won't need dramatic fireworks to recognize something meaningful. Instead, it may feel like finally putting down a heavy burden you didn't even realize you were carrying. You will begin sharing little pieces of yourselves without fear of being misunderstood. Stories from childhood. Dreams that still make your eyes light up. Mistakes that taught unforgettable lessons. Quiet hopes you rarely tell anyone. Every conversation will become another thread weaving two separate lives into one shared future. There will be moments when one of you feels discouraged and the other instinctively knows how to bring peace without trying to fix everything. There will be evenings when simply sitting together after a long day feels more valuable than any grand adventure. The comfort you build will become your favorite place because genuine love is not measured by constant excitement but by the quiet confidence that neither of you has to pretend anymore. Your future spouse dreams about creating a home where laughter is welcomed, honesty is protected, and forgiveness is offered freely. They imagine celebrating small victories together, comforting one another through unexpected disappointments, and reminding each other that no difficult season lasts forever. They picture rainy afternoons spent talking about the future, holiday mornings filled with gratitude, spontaneous road trips where the destination matters less than the company, and peaceful nights when silence itself feels comforting because neither of you doubts the other's love. They don't dream of perfection. They dream of partnership. They dream of building something that grows stronger with every challenge rather than weaker. If they could write one final paragraph before folding this invisible letter and trusting that somehow it would reach your heart, it would sound something like this: I don't know what your life looks like today. I don't know what burdens you're carrying or what fears still visit you when the world grows quiet. But I hope you remember that someone is becoming the answer to the prayers you have whispered in moments when no one else was listening. I hope you continue believing in kindness even if you haven't always received it. I hope you protect your heart without locking every door. I hope you keep laughing, keep dreaming, and keep growing because every step you take toward becoming your truest self brings us one step closer to the life we will someday build together. When we finally meet, I don't want us to wish we had arrived sooner. I want us to be grateful that life gave us enough time to become people capable of loving each other well. Until that day comes, know that even without knowing your name, I am choosing hope over fear, faith over doubt, and tomorrow over yesterday. Somewhere beyond today's horizon, our stories are already moving toward the same page. When that page finally opens, I believe we will both understand why every delay, every lesson, every goodbye, and every unanswered question was leading us to this beginning. Until then, please keep your heart open. I'm still on my way, and every step I take carries me a little closer to you. And now, before this letter reaches its final page, your future spouse wants to leave you with the one truth they hope you never forget, especially on the days when your heart grows weary from waiting. If time could be folded like paper and they were somehow allowed to send just one final message into your present, they would not fill it with promises about exact dates or predictable moments. Instead, they would remind you that the greatest love stories are not built because two people found each other quickly. They are built because two people refused to stop believing that genuine love was still worth waiting for. There were countless moments when they almost settled for a life that looked comfortable on the outside but felt empty within. They almost convinced themselves that loneliness was easier than risking another heartbreak. They almost accepted relationships that required them to become someone they were never meant to be. But every single time they stood at those crossroads, something deep inside quietly whispered, "Not yet. The person meant for your heart is still ahead of you." They didn't understand those moments while they were happening. Looking back, they will someday realize that every closed door was quietly protecting the life they were always meant to share with you. Your future spouse wants you to know that they have already begun loving the person you are becoming, even before learning your name. They admire your resilience without having witnessed every battle you've fought. They are grateful for your kindness without yet experiencing every gentle word you'll one day speak. Somehow, life has been preparing both of your hearts in remarkable ways. The patience you have learned during lonely seasons will become the patience that strengthens your marriage. The compassion born from your disappointments will become the compassion that helps you understand each other's silent struggles. The courage you discovered while rebuilding yourself will become the courage that allows both of you to face life's uncertainties together instead of alone. One day, when you sit beside each other reflecting on the roads that brought you together, you will notice something extraordinary. Many of the events that once felt unfair were actually quiet acts of protection. The relationship that ended before you wanted it to. The opportunity that disappeared without explanation. The move that seemed inconvenient. The unexpected delay that frustrated you. Each one shifted your journey just enough to keep your future intact. What once looked like rejection will begin looking like guidance. What once felt like loss will reveal itself as preparation. That realization will fill both of you with gratitude because you will understand that love was never late. It was simply arriving at the only moment when both of you could truly receive it. Your future spouse often imagines what your first embrace will feel like. They don't imagine perfection. They imagine peace. They imagine the kind of silence where neither of you feels pressured to impress the other because your hearts already recognize something familiar. They imagine looking into your eyes and sensing that the long search has finally come to an end. They imagine laughing over ordinary things, creating traditions no one else understands, celebrating little victories, encouraging one another through unexpected challenges, and slowly building a life where home is no longer a place but a person. They dream of mornings filled with gratitude rather than uncertainty. They dream of evenings where conversations continue long after the lights are turned off because there is always one more memory to share, one more dream to build together, one more reason to smile. They know there will be difficult seasons because every meaningful life contains them, but they no longer fear those seasons. They have learned that storms are less frightening when two faithful hearts face them side by side. That is the future they hope to create with you. Not a perfect life, but a deeply connected one. There is something else they have never admitted aloud. Sometimes they wonder if you are also thinking about them on the very same nights they are quietly thinking about you. They wonder if you've ever looked at the moon and felt strangely comforted without knowing why. They wonder if you've ever smiled after hearing a song that reminded you of someone you've never actually met. They wonder if your heart has ever whispered that your greatest chapter has not yet been written. Those thoughts may seem impossible to explain, yet they continue returning because hope has a language of its own. It speaks softly, often when logic grows silent. It reminds people that not every important truth can be measured or predicted. Some things must simply be lived. If your future spouse could leave one final letter folded inside this message, it might read like this. By the time you read these words, we still may not know each other's names, but I believe our hearts have already begun traveling toward the same future. I hope you've continued choosing kindness even when the world rewarded cruelty. I hope you've protected your dreams instead of abandoning them after disappointment. I hope you've learned to forgive yourself for every chapter that didn't go as planned because none of those chapters defined your worth. One day I will meet the person who survived those moments, and I will quietly thank every lesson that shaped your beautiful heart. Please don't lose hope because the waiting has been long. I promise that when our lives finally intersect, we won't waste time pretending to be someone we're not. We'll build our relationship on honesty, patience, laughter, and the simple decision to keep showing up for each other every day. I won't ask you to become someone else to earn my love because I have already spent years praying for the person you truly are. Until we meet, keep believing that every sunrise is bringing us closer. Keep choosing faith over fear. Keep becoming the person you were always created to be. Somewhere, at this very moment, I'm doing the same. Every decision I make with integrity is one more step toward you. Every lesson I learn is another gift I'll someday bring into our marriage. Every prayer I whisper is carrying both of our futures a little closer together. And when I finally stand before you, I don't think the first words that matter will be, "Hello." I think they'll be the quiet realization inside both our hearts saying, after everything we've been through, we finally found each other. So if this message reached you today, don't carry it as a prediction of exact events. Carry it as a reminder that hope is never wasted on a heart willing to keep growing. The future is still unfolding. Beautiful chapters are still unwritten. Love is still moving, even when you cannot see it. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, the person who will someday call you their greatest blessing is taking another step toward the life that has been patiently waiting for both of you all along. If this letter could somehow remain open for just a little longer, your future spouse would want these next words to settle gently into your heart. They would ask you to stop seeing this season of waiting as empty space and begin seeing it as sacred preparation. Right now, it may feel as though nothing is changing. The days may seem ordinary. The routines may appear repetitive. You may even wonder whether life has forgotten the deepest desires of your heart. But if you could see your story from a higher perspective, you would realize that countless small moments are quietly arranging a future that neither of you could create alone. Every decision you make with integrity, every time you choose kindness instead of bitterness, every occasion when you refuse to let disappointment harden your heart, you are becoming the person your future spouse has been praying to find. They often wonder what your life looks like today. Are you chasing a dream that scares you because it feels too big? Are you carrying responsibilities that few people notice? Do you ever smile for everyone around you while quietly wishing someone would ask how you're really doing? They imagine these things because they know what it feels like to carry invisible burdens. There have been days when they felt strong on the outside but fragile within. Days when they questioned whether anyone would ever truly understand the parts of themselves they rarely reveal. Yet somehow, those difficult seasons never completely stole their hope. Something deep inside continued whispering that one day, there would be someone who wouldn't simply listen to their words, they would understand the silence between those words. They didn't know that person would be you. Your future spouse wants you to know that they have stopped chasing temporary connections. They no longer want conversations that fade after a few weeks or promises that disappear when life becomes inconvenient. They have learned that genuine love isn't measured by dramatic beginnings but by consistent presence. It is found in the person who remembers the little things, who notices when your smile is hiding exhaustion, who celebrates your victories as if they were their own and stands beside you when life becomes unexpectedly difficult. They are becoming that kind of person because they hope to meet someone who values the same things. They hope to build a relationship where honesty feels natural, forgiveness is offered freely, and trust grows stronger with each passing year. Sometimes they imagine your future together in the smallest details. They picture early mornings where one of you wakes first and quietly makes coffee while the other slowly begins another day. They imagine decorating a home filled not with expensive things but with meaningful memories. They picture photographs on the walls that remind you of road trips, birthdays, quiet evenings, and unexpected adventures. They dream of cooking meals together that don't always turn out perfectly but somehow taste better because they were made with laughter. They imagine rainy afternoons spent talking about dreams that have not yet come true and peaceful nights where neither of you feels the need to fill every moment with conversation because your hearts have already learned the language of comfort. There will be seasons that test both of you. There will be moments when work becomes demanding, when unexpected challenges appear, when plans change without warning. Your future spouse knows that life cannot promise endless sunshine. Yet they also believe that love becomes most beautiful when two people decide that difficult seasons are something they will face together rather than alone. They hope to become the kind of partner who reaches for your hand instead of walking away when life becomes complicated. They hope to create a home where disagreements never become reasons to stop loving each other, but opportunities to understand one another more deeply. If they could tell you one thing they have learned through every disappointment, it would be this: the right person never asks you to become less of yourself to earn love. They have tried pretending before. They have hidden parts of their personality to keep peace. They have remained silent when honesty would have been healthier because they feared losing someone. Those choices never brought lasting happiness. They have discovered that real love begins where pretending ends. They hope you are learning the same lesson because when the two of you finally meet, neither of you will need to perform. You won't need perfect words or flawless appearances. You'll simply need the courage to be genuine. There is a quiet confidence growing inside your future spouse now. It wasn't always there. It came slowly, built through years of healing, reflection, and choosing hope even after disappointment. They no longer see waiting as punishment. They see it as preparation. They believe that somewhere, another heart is growing in wisdom at exactly the same time. They believe that every lesson they learn today will become a gift they can bring into tomorrow's relationship. They believe that love built on patience will always stand stronger than love built on urgency. Imagine the day your paths finally cross. Perhaps it won't feel dramatic at first. Maybe it begins with a simple conversation, an unexpected introduction, or a chance meeting that almost never happened. You won't immediately know every detail about each other's past, but there will be something peaceful in the way your conversations unfold. Time will pass more quickly than expected. You'll leave that first meeting with an unexplainable feeling that something important has begun. Over the following days and weeks, you'll find yourselves looking forward to every message, every conversation, every shared laugh. Without forcing anything, trust will begin growing naturally because neither of you is trying to become someone else. Your future spouse believes that one of the greatest gifts in a relationship is feeling emotionally safe. Safe enough to admit fears without embarrassment. Safe enough to celebrate dreams without worrying they'll be dismissed. Safe enough to apologize when mistakes happen and safe enough to forgive without keeping score. That is the kind of future they hope to build with you. Not one free from challenges, but one filled with enough grace that every challenge brings you closer rather than pushing you apart. Before this part of the letter closes, they want to leave you with a promise, not a promise about exact dates or guaranteed outcomes, but a promise about the kind of love they hope to offer. When we finally meet, I want to know the real you. I want to celebrate your strengths without ignoring your struggles. I want to encourage your dreams instead of limiting them. I want to be the person who reminds you, especially on difficult days, that you never have to face life alone again. I don't expect perfection because I know neither of us is perfect. What I hope for is commitment, honesty, laughter, compassion, and the willingness to keep choosing each other every single day. If we've both used this waiting season to grow instead of giving up, then every delay will have been worth it. So as this message reaches your heart today, remember this: the waiting is not meaningless. The chapters that feel quiet are often the ones where the strongest foundations are being built. Every sunrise carries another opportunity to become the person your future spouse is already hoping to meet. And somewhere, without knowing your name, they are making the very same choice. Believing that the best chapter of both your lives is still ahead, and that when your stories finally become one, you'll both understand why hope never asked either of you to give up. And now this letter reaches its final page, but your future spouse hopes these won't feel like ending words. They hope they feel like the beginning of something your heart has quietly been waiting to hear for a very long time. If somehow these thoughts could travel beyond distance and beyond time itself, they would want them to arrive on the exact day you needed hope the most. Perhaps that day is today. Perhaps you've been carrying questions you haven't spoken aloud. Perhaps you've smiled through moments that secretly exhausted you. Perhaps you've wondered if the kind of love you've imagined could truly exist in a world that often seems rushed, distracted, and uncertain. If your future spouse could answer you now, they would gently say, "Please don't let the world convince you that lasting love has disappeared. It still exists. It simply grows more quietly than the noise surrounding it." They know what it feels like to almost stop believing. They know what it feels like to watch plans fall apart and wonder whether life has forgotten them. Yet every difficult season has slowly taught them something remarkable. The strongest relationships are not created by perfect circumstances. They are built by two imperfect people who decide that kindness will speak louder than pride, that forgiveness will be stronger than resentment, and that commitment will remain even after excitement naturally changes into something deeper and more peaceful. Your future spouse often thinks about the person they hope to become before they ever think about the wedding day itself. They have realized that finding the right person matters, but becoming the right person matters just as much. They are learning to be patient when life feels slow, generous when others are selfish, honest when pretending would be easier, and courageous when fear whispers that vulnerability is dangerous. These lessons are shaping them in ways they could never have imagined years ago. Every challenge has refined their character. Every disappointment has strengthened their compassion. Every lonely season has taught them to appreciate genuine connection over temporary attention. One day, when you finally hear the stories behind their smile, you'll realize that many of the qualities you admire most were born during chapters they once wished would end. They will say the same about you. They will notice the quiet strength in your eyes. They will admire the way you remained hopeful without becoming naive, gentle without becoming weak, and faithful to your values even when compromise seemed easier. Those qualities cannot be purchased or imitated. They are earned one difficult day at a time. There may come a moment before your paths cross when you feel tempted to settle for less than what your heart truly longs for. Maybe loneliness will whisper that any company is better than waiting. Maybe disappointment will tell you to lower your expectations until they no longer resemble the life you once dreamed about. If that moment ever arrives, your future spouse hopes you remember this message. They hope you remember that temporary comfort is never worth sacrificing lasting peace. They hope you continue believing that a healthy relationship should never require you to abandon your identity, silence your voice, or constantly question your worth. They want to meet someone who has protected their heart without closing it completely. Someone who still believes that trust is possible, laughter can heal, and tomorrow does not have to repeat yesterday. Sometimes they imagine the little traditions the two of you might create together. A favorite place you'll visit every year simply because it reminds you of where your story began. Quiet walks after dinner where the conversations wander from practical plans to impossible dreams. Birthday letters exchanged every year, not because gifts matter most, but because words become treasured memories over time. Lazy Sunday mornings with no schedule except enjoying each other's company. Celebrating victories that no one else notices because you understand how hard they were to achieve. Comforting one another after disappointments without trying to solve every problem immediately. Building a home where peace is protected, respect is constant, and love is expressed not only in extraordinary moments but in ordinary acts of care repeated day after day. Those are the moments your future spouse treasures most in their imagination because they know that real happiness is rarely found in one dramatic event. It is built through thousands of small choices made with love. If they could somehow look into your eyes today, there is one question they would ask. Have you been as kind to yourself as you have been to everyone else? They ask because they know how easy it is to encourage others while quietly criticizing yourself. They hope you've learned to celebrate your own progress instead of comparing your timeline with someone else's. They hope you've forgiven yourself for the chapters that didn't unfold as planned. They hope you've stopped believing that mistakes define your future. The person they hope to marry is not someone with a flawless past. It is someone who had the courage to keep growing after failure, to keep loving after disappointment, and to keep believing after uncertainty. That is the person they are searching for, even if they don't yet know your name. And now, before this invisible letter is folded one final time, your future spouse wants to leave you with the words they have carried in their heart through every season of waiting. My dearest future, wherever you are, I hope life has been gentle with you, but if it hasn't, I hope it has made you stronger without taking away your kindness. I hope you've laughed often enough to remember joy and cried enough to understand compassion. I hope you've discovered dreams that make your heart come alive and people who reminded you that goodness still exists. Most of all, I hope you haven't given up on the possibility that someone you've never met is already grateful that you exist. I don't know what road you're walking today, but I believe every honest step you take is bringing us closer together. I promise that when we finally meet, I won't expect you to carry your burdens alone anymore. I want to celebrate your victories, comfort your fears, pray with you through uncertain moments, laugh with you over simple things, and build a future where neither of us has to pretend to be anything other than ourselves. If we've both used this season to become wiser, kinder, and more faithful, then every delay will have been worth it. And when we someday look back on all the years before we met, I believe we'll smile instead of grieve, because we'll finally understand that every unexpected turn was quietly leading us home. So if you've stayed with this message until the very end, let your heart carry one simple truth forward. Your future is still being written. There are conversations you haven't had yet that will change your perspective forever. There are moments of unexpected joy waiting beyond today's uncertainty. There are prayers that seem silent now but are still unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. Continue becoming the person you are meant to be. Continue choosing hope over fear, grace over bitterness, and love over cynicism. One day, when your story and your future spouse's story finally become one, you won't remember every lonely evening or every unanswered question with sadness. You'll remember them with gratitude because they shaped two hearts that were finally ready to recognize each other. Until that day arrives, keep moving forward with quiet confidence. Your greatest chapter has not been left behind. It is still waiting ahead, and when it begins, you'll realize that every step, every lesson, and every season was leading you toward the beautiful life you were always meant to share together.